Thank you for checking out New Dice. Very much appreciated. Anyone who interacted with the last video, that means meant the world to me. I really appreciate it. Okay, today we're going to talk about actual plays. I've got some recommendations for you new to the hobby folk. All right, we'll get to that. Also today, I want to read a comment that we got last week that I think is extremely good to talk about in the Daggerheart world. So Daggerheart experts, there is a question I'm going to pose to you later on in the podcast. Plus, later on, after we talk about the actual plays, this right here, I have a question about this. Experienced GMs. I have got a GM question I need help with for my game, okay? So that's coming up today on New Dice. Let's just get into what we're going to be talking about for the meat and the potatoes. People were irritated that I talked so long about the fluff before getting into the Daggerheart stuff on my last video. We'll go the opposite today. Right into the meat, and then we'll do the fluff at the end with some questions that I do need help with. So stay tuned for that. Actual plays. They're everywhere. A lot of people are doing them. You know, I think the joke for a long time was everyone has a podcast. It's getting to the point where it's like everyone has an actual play. I love podcasts, so I'm happy everyone has one. I love actual plays. I'm happy people have them. I think they are very important to new to the hobby people, whether it's as a player or a game master or both. I know for me, I didn't know anything about D&D. One of the big ways I learned about it was from actual play. In fact, I'm gonna list off 5 recommendations. The last one I mentioned is going to be the podcast that got me into learning about Dungeons and Dragons. Is it the best one? No, but it's nostalgic to me. So they're gonna get some love on this list. But it's not going to teach you every single rule to the game. It's not going to give you all the tips that you need to run a game like a Matt Colville video does. But I think they're very valuable. It's a different way to learn a system while learning how the game system works and seeing what this game or this hobby can become. Okay? So, these are big undertakings listening to an actual play. You know, it's a lot more than watching a 15-minute here's how the rules for Dungeons and Dragons work goes. It's a big undertaking, but I think they're great. I grew up loving radio, live radio shows. I guess they're not live radio shows. They were the stories on the radio, and, you know, it was like a book ended up in your ears while you were driving around. While I was driving around with my mom and dad, and we listened to, like, the Sugar Creek Gang and Adventures in Odyssey, and I was like, this is cool. It's like a TV show, but it's on my radio. That's what it is. It's a great story. So, 5 recommendations for you. These are in no particular order. I do have a favorite in here, and I'll make sure that's clear when we get to that one. But here's what I'd recommend listening to. New GMs, new to the hobby, new to actual play. Let's go. Critical Role Season 1 has to be on the list. Vox Machina. Is it an undertaking? Yeah, it's a monstrous undertaking. 115 episodes, 448 hours of content. That's like 19 days of content. It is an enormous, enormous story arc. Overwhelming when you start it. But for those who work through it, it's really, really good. And I think years and years from now, when we're looking back at the history of actual plays on the internet, whether or not it was the first one, it wasn't the first one, it's going to get credit for kind of being the season that got all this started. That got this whole string of actual plays, this whole genre started. They're going to get credit for it. I know Penny Arcade's mad. One of them I'm going to mention they're mad, but sorry, it is what it is. Critical Role is going to get credit for all this. Critical Role, Season 1, you get Matt Mercer. One of the best to ever do it. So in terms of running a game, Matt Mercer is right up there at the very tippy top, S tier, and you can watch him work. And it's cool because it's, you know, first season for them, so everyone's figuring this out together. And I think that's where you can really see how great Matt is at this, because while the players and everyone are figuring this out, he's pretty rock solid the whole time with how he runs the game. Really good for new GMs, new players, because at the beginning of the season, a lot of the cast, who is unbelievable, they're learning how to play D&D, coming from Pathfinder. So you get a lot of rules. At the beginning, Matt does a really good job explaining rules, and I think that's extremely valuable for GMs and players that are new to the hobby. This will show you with the story also how cool it can be to get a story going in the TTRPG world, and just how epic it can be, right? It will inspire you to be epic in your game. Another thing I think is really important for new GMs, Critical Role loses a player. 20 episodes in, they lose Tiberius. It wasn't working. He was not working with his table. I think this is such an under talked about moment in learning how to GM from Critical Role, outside of everything else that they teach you, whether it's awesome set pieces, great interaction in RP, fun battles, outside of all that, they had a player at their table that wasn't working and they just cut ties with them. And I think that is something that we can take away from Critical Role Season 1 is that not everyone's going to work at your table and with your style. And it's okay to be like, look, this isn't going to work. We operate differently at this table. It's not working with your style of play. For this to be successful, for this table to be fun, for us to enjoy it, we got to cut ties. And they do that on the hugest stage. So I think that was positive. Obviously, a negative for this one, it can put extreme pressure on you as a new GM or even a player because your table is not going to be Critical Role. And so when you go on and sit down and you're like, why am I not Matt Mercer? Well, you're not Matt Mercer. So you do have to watch all of these kind of with that grain of salt in there of, yeah, you can take stuff from these seasons to your table, but you're not Matt Mercer. So the pressure that can put on you, you got to find a way to pull back from that and understand you're not this. Okay, Exandria Unlimited Calamity. 4 episodes, about 20 hours of content. Okay, that's what you're looking at with this one. It is a small story arc in between campaigns for Critical Role, and it is Brennan Lee Mulligan. So I think Brennan Lee Mulligan is the best GM DM out there. I think he does it better than anybody. And so this is a great opportunity for you, new GM or wannabe GM, to get to see what the best person does. Will you be able to do it, like I just said, like him? Probably not. But can you take away a lot from him? Yes. And I think Calamity is his best Critical Role work. Of course, he's going to DM Season 4. But I think this is his best Critical Role work. He is an amazing GM for players for a lot of reasons, but I think something you can take away if you watch it with this man celebrates his players and their creativity more than any other GM. Matt Mercer does a great job with it. Some other guys who do this and people do a great job with it. But Brennan is legitimately excited when a player at the table does something they want to do, and even if that was not going to be how he wanted things to go, maybe it's not how he wanted the story to go, how he had planned. Brennan celebrates their decisions. Amazing, right? He'll constantly tell people that what they're doing is amazing because he gets that this is a collaborative story and this is a collaborative event. And so I really think it's a great one. Exandria Unlimited Calamity. Amazing story. The players are great. Brennan is great. I'd recommend it. Sticking with that, the third recommendation I'd give you, number 3 would be Dimension 20 Fantasy High. I have not watched all of the other Dimension 20 seasons. I don't have a subscription to drop out, so I haven't watched anything besides their first season, which is on YouTube, but it's amazing. 17 episodes, 28 hours. You get more Brennan Lee Mulligan. And you also, a couple things. Number 1, Brennan is great. The players are great. And they have really good chemistry. And I think it kind of shows, if you buy into the players at your table, if you buy into the other players at your table, you can really make something special. And there's a maximum buy-in at that table. I think that's really cool. But one of the big reasons I recommend Dimension 20 Fantasy High Season 1 to everybody is they use Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition to tell their story in a world that is not high fantasy. I think a lot of people, you're getting into the hobby, you think, well, I've got to run a high fantasy campaign. In the Sword Coast, it's got to be Dritz Duorden, it's got to be dwarfs and knights, elves, and all the just the regular fantasy Lord of the Rings style tropes. Brennan Lee Mulligan and the gang take D&D, they stick it into a fantasy world that's a high school. And they've got vehicles and they go through and get in a fight in the kitchen. And It shows you that you are not tied into that classic, very fun. I love a good high fantasy world. That's where I would want to choose to play in. But this shows you that it can be so much more than that, and you can go anywhere with the system. You can go anywhere with the TTRPG and have a ton of fun and tell an amazing story. So I'd highly recommend that one. Okay, my favorite actual play series of them all. The Adventure Zone Season 1 Balance. 69 episodes, 89 hours of content. Personally, this is my favorite actual play season of any of them. I understand that this is going to be a controversial one because, one, they do not stick to the rules of D&D. They are very, very loose with the rules of D&D. Very, very loose, okay? They also do a ton of jokes. They are kind of comedians. The McElroy brothers are my brother and me. They're comedians at heart who just stumbled into running D&D and making the Adventure Zone out of it. But I get that those are bad, but I think this is a very special actual play series. They don't stick to the rules. Correct. I think for a GM, that's so important to know. There are guidelines, right? There are rules. There are rules you can follow, but my goodness, you don't have to stick to them. You can do whatever you want. It's your table. It's your game. You don't know what the damage is on a certain weapon, make it up. Have them roll something. Guess what? It's fine. It's fun. It's great. They prove that constantly in the Adventure Zone in Balance. Okay? Griffin McElroy tells a phenomenal story in Balance. It is inspirational if you are getting into this hobby to tell a great story. As a GM, you listen to Griffin McElroy do his thing in Season 1, and it is so special. I love listening to Season 1s of things. We'll talk. I guess we'll save that for the next one. We'll table that, why I like listening to Season 1s and why a lot of these are recommendations of Season 1s. I am in the middle of Season 2 of High Rollers, and it seems better than Season 1, but the ones I'm recommending are Season 1s. But this campaign shows you how many different things you can do in your campaign, okay? It does not have to just be get a quest. D&D doesn't have to be get a quest, fight stuff, return back, get a new quest, go out, fight stuff. The Adventure Zone Balance shows the different things you can do inside of the confines of a TTRPG. And I think it's miraculous. I think it's awesome. A mystery in there, right? The way I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil anything because I think it's phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It's my favorite actual play, Season 1 of the Adventure Zone Balance. And then I'm going to give a nod to my fifth one on the list. Is this the best one? No. But it's my first one. 2009, I'm messing around on my iPod, looking for podcasts to listen to, and I'm like, a D&D podcast? What is this? Critical Hit from Major Spoilers, okay? Critical Hit. It's D&D 4th edition. The audio is not great. One of the cast members isn't my favorite person to listen to play the game. He lies about his roles for the majority of the first season, gets about 500 nat 20s. Once you play D&D, you realize how rare that is, and you realize, oh, this guy was just fudging his numbers because he wasn't live at the table with them. It can get a little annoying, but I guess it would technically be Season 2 of Critical Hit. They call the first 4 episodes as they're fumbling into what actual play is, because this was created before actual play was a thing, so they don't know what they're doing. They're like, would anyone want to hear us play Dungeons & Dragons? They get into it learning about 4th edition. They end up playing it, and they kind of create actual play on accident. Okay, so you listen to the first 4 episodes, that's technically Season 1. But if you listen to 1 through 57, that's Season 1 to me. And I think it's really good. 4 Against the Void. The story is amazing. Rodrigo, the DM, does a great job with the story. Again, it's 4th edition. But one thing I mentioned about Season 1s, you get to see what a table is like as they are learning to play together. And if you're new to the hobby, that's going to be you. You're going to be new, even if you know the people at your table. You're all going to be new to it. So I think there is such value in a Season 1, especially something like Critical Hit, as the guys at the table are learning about each other while the GM is learning about their table. And I think that is such a good thing to learn, to get to have into your pocket of, like, even the people on the internet at some point had to start learning how to do this as a group, and that's very valuable. I wanted to throw in one more. I forgot to throw this on my list, so I'm editing this in, so now there's 6. Land of Eam podcast. The Land of Eam, you can check them out on their YouTube. A game that won some Ennies. I want to talk about, that's going to be something we talk about later on this channel. But for a new GM, I think their podcast is phenomenal to listen to. Audio wise, it's not great. It's not. But content wise, it is amazing. Now, the system is so different from D&D. Okay, so if you're new to the hobby and you're trying to learn something, I still think you need to start with something like this to get a base, just to get a base of it. Land of Eam, very different. The system is extremely different. Not heavy on combat light, rules light, very heavy on exploration. But my gosh, it's a phenomenal system. And the podcast, their actual play is the creators playing it, and they thrive. The game really revolves and works with random encounters and exploration. And I think if you're jumping to your table, there's so much you can take from the Land of Eam actual play, because this is a system you go in with very little prep to no prep, and things just come up based on random tables. And I think it's really fun to listen to as someone who wants to run a game. You go, okay, look, this is how you can do how random encounters work and how they can just impact your table so mightily. Okay, highly recommend it. Land of Eam. Okay, I snuck that one in after I already recorded everything, but I had it written down and I forgot to bring it up, so I needed to bring it up. Check that one out. So there's 6. You're welcome. 6 of them. That was a lot of time right there spent talking about actual plays. I hope you liked it. Okay, a couple quick things before we get out of here. These need to be 20 minutes. This cut before we get to the comment. Okay, for my table, I'm looking for GM advice. What I want to do with this. I don't have a great name for it yet. I think I'm going to call it my Critical Cup. I got this in my Dungeon Crate, one of my Dungeon Crate boxes. You can go check out the Dungeon Crate video. Should you get Dungeon Crate subscription? This is one of the items they threw in there, and I'm like, how do I use it? Because I want to use it. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to let this be a container for D20s. I don't have any D20s here, but I have some other dice. And I want, as game sessions go on, to drop D20s into this. Again, not all these are D20s. I understand that. I want to drop D20s in there as it fills up. And at any moment during the session, when something comes up and a roll goes wrong or a really important roll is coming up, the table can agree to take this cup, the Critical Cup, and roll every single dice that's in here, taking the best one. Okay? You're trying to get a nat 20 for something. As this has filled up, at any moment, the table can agree, we're using it right now, roll them all out, take the best die, the Critical Cup. My thing is, how do I fill this? So, my original thought is, every time the party rolls a critical hit or a critical fail, I put a D20 in. Okay? Every time a D20 is rolled and it's a 1 or a 20, I put a D20 in this cup. Once it's full, it's full. No more goes in there. This will carry on if it needs to from session to session. You can use it as many times as you want in a session. It just has to have dice in it. Okay? That's what I'm thinking. Give me some, GMs who have a lot of experienced GMs. What are some other ways to fill that up? What are some other things you can reward your party with as a whole to put in this cup? So that when they get to roll it out, I think that'll be very fun to see, 8, 9 die rolling out across the table looking for that nat 20. Let me know. The Critical Cup. Maybe you can use it at your table. I think it's kind of a fun idea. I know we have, I mentioned it in the video I have about the die that can change your table. We get an inspiration die at our table at the start of every session. If we recap, that'd be another good reason for me to put a D20 in there. If the party's paying attention, and can help recap the previous episode or previous session. All right, let's finish with this. A comment I got on the last video, the video about Daggerheart. I think this is something I want to talk about. Go ahead in the comments and we can debate this there, because I thought this was a fair question from Block Eon the Leafeon. Block Eon the Leafeon. When talking about Daggerheart, they said, did we look at the same game? You wanted to flesh out the town, This is in regards to my session. You wanted to flesh out the town, but that's not really the point of Daggerheart. In Daggerheart, you're supposed to let the players decide what they see. Always. You must be D&D brain, because in that game, the DM plans everything out, no matter what, at least from what I've seen on it thus far, compared to how Daggerheart does things. Even still, going into Daggerheart expecting another D&D clone is understandable, since many people that play Daggerheart come from D&D already. Yes, agreed. Is Daggerheart that? I don't think it is, but I think there's a misconception that it is. And I think this is something that could become contentious a little bit in the Daggerheart community, because I don't think that's what Daggerheart is. And my examples would be this. And I understand they want this game to be narrative at the table with everybody, a cooperative experience in creating the story. But I don't think that means that the DM is not doing anything or not prepping anything. Examples, if you look at their quick start adventure that Darrington Press released, it looks like a D&D module, right? It's got the block text in it explaining the situation the characters are in, telling them what they see, painting the picture of whatever, if they're in a building, painting the picture of that building, and that's how the module from Darrington Press works. Watch the Age of Umbra Critical Role campaign. Matt Mercer has entire set pieces. All right? Is he throwing in things like, okay, well, what's it like to you, player? Absolutely, way more than D&D. And that's where it gets to be a group narrative. But as much as I think people are getting into Daggerheart expecting it to be for a GM, don't do anything, because the table is going to come up with everything. I don't think that's what Daggerheart is. I do think it is still a requirement for a GM to plan stuff out, to have scenarios ready, to have descriptive stuff ready. Can you get help from the players? Absolutely. I think that's great in D&D as well. Walk into a room, what do you see? Rogue, what do you see? You were the first one in, what do you see? I think that's great in any TTRPG. I think we should discuss that, though, in the comments. What do you think of this comment from Blockion the Leafeon? All right, thanks for checking out New Dice. Hope you enjoyed.